Here is an example of Trump, right? He had this calm thing, and he's trying to regain his balance. And what he does in Daytona Beach last night to regain his balance, and I don't know if he did this basically because somewhere in his heart he has some measure of empathy for producers working at news shows who are trying to compile all of his greatest sort of outrageous comments.
You want me to do a loop for you guys?
That was
yeah, check it out. I could do this.
Was effective in getting Republican support, but of course alienating normal people. So it's as if last night he said, you know, I'm aware that there are producers out there spending their nights cutting together, my greatest hits. I'm going to throw it all together in one package for them so they don't have to have jump cuts. Here it is in Daytona Beach, for some reason referencing things that were outrageous. Let's play this, and then I'll give him more analysis. It's unbelievable.
Tough battle in Florida, and tremendous amounts of money was spent on me. Tremendous. The commercials, it was very depressing. You turn on the television, I want to watch Ivory Snow. I want to watch like a cereal, something, Kellogg, something, anything. All it was negative hit, and I told my people there's no way we can win Florida. There's no way. And negative. And those commercials were so false, just like Hillary's commercials. They're so false. They're so false. Like she's got the one with blood coming out of her eyes. And I meant her nose, or her ears, or her mouth. But these people are perverted, and they think it was another location. Unbelievable. And you know the truth? I cut it short because I was talking about either taxes or economic development. So I said, or whatever. And I wanted to get back on the subject. I should have finished it out. It would have been much better. So they lied. Then they put a reporter on, and nobody's better to people with disabilities than me. I spend millions and millions of dollars on buildings taking care of people with disabilities. Millions. But we had a story where I was talking about people dancing in the streets or dancing on the rooftops, you remember. Now, in all fairness, throughout the world, they were dancing. But I said, in New Jersey, they were dancing. And, no, I said, when the World Trade Center came down, nice, real nice. So here's the story. By the way, those people that knocked down the World Trade Center, most likely, under the Trump policy, wouldn't have been here to knock down the World Trade Center, just so you understand. So you know what the word grovel is, right? When you're groveling. In other words, you're trying to tell something, you're trying to make something up, you're groveling. So you have the story with the blood. Now I tell you about the grovel.
Pause
so
it.
I had a reporter wrote.
Pause it. No, that's not what grovel means. But grovel, like he's just like he's like a free-forming associate, like gravel, like gravelly, grovel. It's like when you say what?
It's like when you want to see a Kellogg's ad, there's an ad attacking you on TV instead.
Incidentally, he has spent millions of dollars, helping people with disabilities in his buildings because of the American Disabilities Act, which says when you build a building, you have to make it accessible for people with disabilities.
Yeah, I can font the code. I don't know what your problem is.
I didn't have to put as much sand in the cement. I could have just done it like they do it in Haiti, but I didn't. I spent millions of dollars on actually meeting codes. Sometimes.
I installed sprinklers in at least 50% of my units. I don't really understand what the problem is. I've done a lot of fire safety.
I no longer actively keep black people out of my buildings. It only took 2 consent decrees. All right, continue.
So I had a reporter wrote a good story for making my case. Because it was a long time ago. It's like 15, 16 years from the time we started this narrative. So it was a long time ago. And it was during the World Trade Center. Right after the World Trade Center, this reporter wrote a story talking about people dancing in the streets or on rooftops or something. It was pretty good. So we used it. And then the reporter, after I'm sure he was given tremendous pressure, He worked for, I believe, the Washington Post, and he worked for the New York Times, and he worked for different things. Terrible. Terrible. Totally dishonest. That's okay. But the reporter, all of a sudden, remembered it totally different from his story. And he was groveling. I won't make the motions because if I do, they'll say something, you know. But I really spread this word. So he was groveling
Spread the word.
and trying to change his story. And going, you know, well, maybe not. And so I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it. But.
All right, folks. I mean, he is referencing in 3 minutes the blood coming out of wherever. And I don't even think like half the people in the audience doesn't know. The only one person in the audience who gets it is like this really, this like 20 some odd guy, beefy guy in the background is just going like, yeah, laughing, cackling at the whole blood thing. And right over his shoulder. And I think like a certain percentage of people, they're just like, what's he talking about? What's he talking about? The main audience for that are the reporters who want to talk about why in the world would this guy reference this thing that he did a year ago and not really even have a very good, like I was talking about taxes, and I said, whatever. I could have said his nose or her face. She had blood coming out of her face. Like this is, and then.
I could have said breasts. Well, probably not breasts.
And then he tries to pivot to dancing. And what must be going on in his mind is like, I remember I was making it look like I was flailing around like I was dancing. And then so he first tries to bring up disabilities by claiming like, I'm a great guy. I have completely spent money to keep my buildings up to code in terms of the American Disabilities Act. I didn't have to do that. I mean, I did, but I didn't have to.
Well, we tried to bribe city and state officials. Didn't work.
I could have bribed people, or I could have upped their bribe.
The time.
But understand, so he had gone to the reporter that he had mocked for his disability in his mind. So he raised his disabilities. And then he remembered, like, I was dancing around. So he brings that into how Muslims were dancing on 9/11 and then swings it back around to his Muslim band, back through the disability by saying that this guy was groveling. He was doing, when he was doing this for the disabled guy, that's what groveling is. When you go back on what you wrote.
Can I be a little mainstream press here and do some fairness? You can really see the influence of people like Paul Manafort because he restrained himself from doing the impression again. So that's the general election pivot.
He's definitely pivoted. Definitely pivoted. But the point being that this is not a guy who's feeling confident about where he is. That's a very defensive move, even for someone who's completely idiotic when it comes to this
Right.
thing.
He doesn't even understand. For a belligerent moron, you're awful defensive and insecure over
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Exactly. Hello, you. I'm Sam Seder. Looking for smart progressive talk that is occasionally amusing? Well, subscribe to our YouTube feed. Subscribe to our podcast. Like us on Facebook. And just generally enjoy us.